multimeter that goes around that particular cable. You can't do that with the open atmosphere. You can't show that there's an electrical flow from the top to the bottom because you can't clamp it.
Well, would lightning prove that there is an electrical flow from the top to the bottom, or bottom to top? I think electricity is bottom to top.
Not specifically.
But okay,
I wouldn't say so. Dude, it's a very no, thank you for raising that. Because I acknowledge that you can detect an electrical current without necessarily needing a neutral position in order to detect it. It seems that I put my clamp around that cable, and I need to isolate that cable. It can't be the neutral. And as soon as I put the neutral in the on the clamps, they got like a little holder thing that goes around, and the device feeds back to me that a certain current is flowing through it. But if I put both the positive and the negative inside of that clamp, it doesn't spit back. It's unreadable. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting because I'm doing that without a neutral at that point. So I got to think about this a little bit more.
It reads zero because the two current flows cancel each other. They're going in opposite directions.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. You know what's in the probe? You know what's in that little thing you put around the wire? Do you have any idea how it works?
You put it around one wire.
I know how to do it. Do you know how? Do you know how it detects the current flow?
Well, dude, I just put the multimeter around the clamp around the multimeter, and it feeds back like a digital readout, 6.5 amps or something.
Yeah, there's a reason why it can detect that current flow.
Yeah, how so?
Magnetic.
Yeah, it's a little transformer.
Pardon? A little transformer. Do you want to tell me?
That's what it amounts to.
I don't expect you to. I'm not trying to hold you to account as far as the explanation of it. It's more just like a casual conversation for me. Do you
notice that when you open the jaws of that thing, you see the little metal parts of the jaws, and they kind of interlock with each other.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, for sure. I could probably pick up one right now.
That's part of the core of the transformer that opened the current. It's a current transformer. That's part of the core that opens up so that you can clamp it around something. But that's what it is. It's a little transformer. They're called current transformers.
Okay, cool. Granted.
You'll see them on drawings, usually labeled CT, and it just looks like a coil around a wire. And that's what it really, in essence, what it is. So we're using magnetic induction to measure current flow.
So it's the induction part. So I'm asking the question of how does the clamp detect current without a neutral? There's something going on there. It's a
neutral. Current is flowing through. Current is flowing through that magnetic core.
He's trying to model an experiment.
Just to let you know, if you've got a hot thing, or two surfaces that are essentially the same in all feeling. One is 20 degrees and the other one is 40 degrees. As you run your finger between the two different surfaces, the only reason that you can detect the fact that there's two different surfaces is because of their temperature. As soon as you actually make them both the same temperature, then there is actually no means of detecting it. So when it comes to the notion of this current detector, I'm just trying to work out exactly what's the neutral that it's comparing itself to. Every detection method is always based on a neutral, in my interpretation.
No, it isn't. I'm sorry.
Correct me where I'm wrong. Go ahead.
Instead of neutral, would you accept the term baseline?
Baseline is a reference, but baseline is just a referential point based on our capabilities of achieving. So baseline, the coldest thing you could ever achieve, the baseline is 270 degrees minus.
It's a couple somethings up above absolute zero. Yeah, But what I'm trying to say is so if you could accept a baseline, there's this system that's doing this thing and it's not doing a thing, and then I attach this system to this thing and then it does a thing. Because I think when you use the word neutral, that's what I think you're trying to get out of it as a baseline. How do I know this thing isn't detecting this prior? And then how do I know this? Is that what you're asking for? With the neutral?
Sorry, my apologies. I feel like I interrupted you in your sort of flow of.
Oh no! I was kind of done, but it doesn't matter. No worries. But is that what you're asking for? That control? That is that the question where it's framed from?
Yeah. Where's your control? Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I've asked that for multiple times, so I thought it was obvious.
But the thing is, in an electrical question,
where's your control?
Yeah, in an electrical question, though, if you say that, you know what I mean, you may be conflating some issues, and I think that's why Blue is going through and asking the questions. I don't know the answer to that, and that's an interesting question. I don't know how that device does that, but I think that's the question he's asking, Blue, is how do you know that device is detecting it when you put the clamps on, take the clamps off, or change variables and stuff like that?
I'm sorry, I stepped away for a second. How do you know that it's detecting current flow?
Yes, I think that's the question. I don't want to put words in your mouth, dude.
That's about right. Yeah, cool. Go with that, man. Hit it.
Well, that's what the device does. It detects current flow.
Okay, so
it depends.
Do that,
it depends very much on the type of detector that you're using. If you're only interested in detecting AC current, then it's pretty straightforward. The little transformer idea that I told you about, that's the one that works for that. Because now you've got a changing magnetic field because you've got alternating current flowing through the wire.
Yep.
And
the DC one is more important to me personally.
Okay, DC ones are usually done with field effect transistors, Hall effect.
Have they got a ground by which they detect the?
No, you can't detect.
They don't use a ground.
You cannot detect potential with a current transformer. It doesn't care whether that wire is sitting at 50 kV with respect to ground or 1 volt with respect to ground. All it knows is the amount of current flowing through it. It's totally irrespective of the voltage on that wire.
Hey, Blue, did the Faraday cage actually affect the Cavendish experiment that you mentioned? Like putting the Faraday cage around, did it have an overall change or no?
Yeah, I was experiencing a little bit of electrostatic effect, and that's the reason I went ahead and put the Faraday cage in it. I built it without it to begin with, just to see. Right. And yes, you can have some electrostatic effects.
Cool.
But there's a really famous experiment that people should study up on. I tagged you on it. It's called Faraday's ice pail experiment. Now that's pretty cool. You got to read up on that one sometime. It'll tell you a lot about electrostatics.
What was it again?
It's called Faraday's ice pail experiment.
Okay. Thanks, man.
All right. Essentially, you take a metal pail and set it on an insulating surface and connect the exterior of the pail to a Leyden jar. You know what that is?
A Leyden jar? No.
Yeah.
No. Remind me. I've heard it before, but it's been a while.
Well, it's a little jar, and it's got an electrode coming in the top of it, and it's got a couple of pieces of real thin foil suspended. And when those foils are not charged, they just hang straight down next to each other. But the instant you put a charge on that, a static electric charge on it, then they're both at the same potential, and they repel each other. So they open up like they spread apart. It's an ancient way of detecting electric charge. But the interesting thing about the Faraday pail is you can take you can charge another object, and you can lower it down in the pail. And if you hook the Leyden jar to the exterior of the pail, you get nothing. But if you hook the Leyden jar to the inside of the pail, as soon as you lower the charge down into it without touching it, then the Leyden jar will show you that the inside of the pail has a charge on it. But here's the great part. When you move the Leyden jar connection to the outside of the pail, there's no charge. It's all on the inside. But the very instant you touch the charged part of object that you've put in that jar, in that pail, to the inside of the pail, all the charge goes to the outside. There will be no more charge inside. It's really cool. In fact, look up Walter Lewin with MIT. Does a bunch of experiments based around this idea. And that's basically the basis of the Faraday cage.
So the bucket was charged up. Then when you touched it, then charged the outside of the bucket.
Yeah.
So the inside.
There's no more. Exactly. Yeah. There's no more charge on the inside. All of it gets transferred to the outside of the bucket.
Can you harness that, or is it just like a static backwards and forwards, like a seesaw, or can you actually make it drive something?
No, you can't. It's not designed for that.
Right. So you can't create it's not like a generator. It's more just a static storage. Or is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah. It's just showing. It shows how static charges behave.
Right. So would you get that? Like when you rub your pen on the carpet, or you rub something on the carpet. You like your shoes. Is that a similar thing? The build up on the outside.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think how you do this at home. Could you use the front of your TV, because that's a big static charge, isn't it?
Yep.
hold it near the TV or hold it near a speaker. Oh no, that's magnetic, the speaker, isn't it? So the TV, I guess. Yeah, you could do it that way, couldn't you? Cool. Thanks, man.
And it shows you why when you put something like Cavendish inside a Faraday cage and connect the all that stuff together, you can't possibly have an electrostatic charge in there between anything. So that's how you rule out. That's how you rule out electrostatics with Cavendish. Now, Cavendish, my theory about this, because Cavendish did his work, electrostatics weren't that well known, and Cavendish didn't take any precautions at all. But I surmise that because of the propensity of wood to absorb moisture, the enclosure that he built probably stayed damp enough in that English atmosphere to act like a Faraday cage. Now, I'm doing it in a pretty dry environment in my workshop. So my wood was very dry. And I think that's what eventually would allow it to develop a static electric charge inside there. So I had to take I had to go ahead and build the Faraday cage, which is nothing but just copper foil. Same stuff you line the inside of a guitar with, electric guitar.
Right, because what you're saying there, with photocopiers, the old-fashioned photocopiers, they have a drum that throws an image off the document onto a statically charged drum, and wherever the light touches the drum, it gets rid of the charge. Wherever it leaves it, that comes up your black. So hence your photocopying is the toner has an electromagnetic sort of property about it, so it sucks it onto the drum of the toner, which then prints onto the paper. And we found that the photocopiers up in the Northern Territory had to have a bowl of water next to them in order to stop, because you get such a dryness in the paper and the static discharge that the photocopiers just jam all the time. And you put a bowl of water down, and suddenly the photocopier starts working on another ream of paper. And the photocopier starts working, and it'll pull the paper through, not jam so much, but slippage. It's not getting the proper image, and you notice that too. And photocopiers use a lot of static charge inside and out them. They use it to lift paper off and on rather than fans. Yeah, but we were actually getting toner properties, and putting a jar of water stops the toner, makes your copies come up blacker. Kind of weird. You think that something like that wouldn't affect it, but it does.
Yeah, the most common criticism I've heard from the flat earthers about Cavendish is this horseshit about electrostatics. They listen to Witz too much.
For Marvel, did anyone ever tell you that you sound like Johnny Cash in the opening of When a Man Comes Around?
Oh, I've heard all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not insulting.
I know.
Yeah, I was. I was just I had Apple Play going, and that song came on, and I looked at my computer because I thought I logged off because I thought I heard your voice.
Well, you don't start singing.
No, don't worry. I don't do that. Hell, I don't even like my singing. Why would anybody else like it?
I'm telling you, you could do the opening for When the Man Comes Around when he's just talking and reading Revelations.
Oh yeah, that part of it.
That's what came on, and I was like, why is he reading scripture? I was like, I thought I logged out, and then I was like, oh, it's my Apple Music.
Yeah, what did Johnny Cash know about Cavendish?
Not much, but he knew a lot about many things.
The only way you know something is by comparing it to something else. How's that sound as a formula?
Yeah, that seems to repeat itself on so many different levels here on Earth.
What if you haven't got anything to compare it to?
Well, then you defer to something greater beyond that.
If we could talk not like physical, but could knowledge be a journey?
Could knowledge be a journey? Like knowledge is inherently okay. But I'll put it to you, right? All stories are arranged in a structure like that of the journey. and they construct themselves within the knowledge scape of knowledge.
So my question kind of is, if knowledge is a destination, I need to make efforts to get there, and maybe
Knowledge is not a destination. No.
Okay.
In my interpretation, knowledge is not a destination.
So to break what I'll say down, would you say knowledge is something that can be achieved?
No. Like knowledge can be achieved. Information and appreciation of information can be achieved. I'm not sure what to achieve knowledge would necessarily mean.
Yeah,
So
how easy would it be?
a simple. I'm sorry, real quick, but a simple would be like the names on the screen. I have knowledge to call you a name because of my interpretation of my reality of what I see.
That's just information.
I understand that, but so like where do we take the information part out, and now it's just pure knowledge? Because
you would agree that the name that you read on the screen about me is not truth, right? It's a pseudonym.
But for the
it's information, it's knowledge, but it's not truth.
Right? Okay, so knowledge must be truth then?
No, I didn't state that. Knowledge has got nothing to do with truth. Knowledge is just knowledge.
Okay, and then so what I'm trying to do is extract the information part out and get what knowledge is.
But the information part, like you're actually not even seeking out information in that point, as far as I can interpret. What are you seeking out there? Like, I'm at a loss to the terminology. I would seek out. Go ahead.
I would say seek out. We were talking earlier about your experiment that you could do, right? You're seeking knowledge, right? You're seeking the understanding. And if it can be true, it sounds like it's knowledge.
If it can be true, it is knowledge. But if it can't be true, it's also knowledge. Knowledge of that which is not true is also knowledge, right?
I'm not. Yes, but what I'm asking is, if I can't use information to determine what knowledge is, truth is subjective of yes or no, but still can be knowledge. I'm kind of because I've given you what I think knowledge is, and you say it can't be that. So it's more what is knowledge, and then
it's not that it can't be that. It's just not like you can't necessarily attribute it to knowledge.
So my statement of it can't be that is I said knowledge is a destination. Knowledge is something that can be achieved, and it's not a destination. It can't be achieved.
Knowledge is definitely a destination, my interpretation, but whether or not that destination is true is two different things.
I agree.
You can have information that leads you to like a position, but whether or not you're actually you found the gold at the end of the X mark on a map, it's not necessarily true.
And I completely agree with that. But so so in our quest of knowledge, it's because it's constantly asked what is knowledge? What is knowledge? But in the quest of it, we have to be able to define what it is if we're going to even know how to achieve it. You know what I mean?
Especially find true knowledge in a world filled with deception, like in the United States, where they push propaganda, covert operations, right? Gaslight people during operations. They never admit to the operation. In fact, they'll have to gaslight people until it's disclosed. So, great points.
So if we could go back and agree on knowledge being a destination.
Yeah, but a truthful destination? Maybe.
So remember okay, that's completely fine. I already gave you the secondary aspect, but so the primary aspect of if knowledge is a destination, then you need to be able to go from point A to point B, and you have to be able to direct yourself there. You could go in many wonky lines and still end up in the right place, knowledge. Or there's straight paths, there's other way, but you have to know how to navigate that.
I'm just going to let you know that you're the way that you're actually patterning this out to me indicates to me that it would kind of lead to a chaotic interpretation, just in the outlay of what you're referring to. I'm not saying that I necessarily have the key to solve the problem. I'm just implying that it's not making sense, and because it's nonsensical, then it leads to chaos, and chaos is not a map.
Yes, I understand that. But what I'm saying is through the chaos of trying to find the destination, that is the process of the journey, your footsteps, or whatever you want to call it.
My man, you're onto it. Yeah, sure. Definitely. At that point, I agree.
Yeah, and so you can be heading in the right direction with your footsteps on that process to get there, and you could miss knowledge. You could get there, and like we said, it's not true. There's multiple things, but the process of point A to point B is what has to kind of get described or defined, and then we can know we're even at knowledge. You know what I mean?
No, you will never know. You will never know that you're at knowledge. If you're saying knowledge, if you're conflating that knowledge is truth, are you conflating that knowledge is truth?
No, I told you. I said no. But so knowledge could be the outcome of that experiment, right? So now we have knowledge that it works.
It's just information. Yeah,
and that's why earlier when I was talking about knowledge and information and things like that. But if we did that experiment, yes, we have information, but I would be confident to say I have knowledge that I did this experiment and it had this outcome. I would be confident to make that statement with that terminology. And I can also say I have information that, you know what I mean? Like it's a bit semantical at that point. But I'm at the destination I aimed myself to go. Whether it's true or not, that's another conversation.
I haven't got a response for you, so if anyone else wants to weigh in, you're welcome to.
Well, I have a question for Renee, since we're on the topic of knowledge and truth. In your worldview, how do you determine truth?
That is one of the hardest things to determine. It truly is. You'd have to take independent experiences, collections of information that you've gathered over time, and then have a rationalized worldview to weigh them against. At that point, I make a determination on whether or not that this information is quote unquote true, but you could almost say true to me, because I know where this is kind of going to go. I can't point to an external source of knowledge, of truth.
That's okay. I appreciate that. In a non-world view, I guess you can find truth by, like you said, from philosophy.org or philosophynow.org. I think the 4 factors that they state determine truth of a theory or explanation are congruence, consistency, coherence, and usefulness. And that's from philosophynow.org. But great point. So in a God worldview, there's a theory, but even in a non-God worldview, I guess you can turn to society to find truth potentially, or what's axiomatic, what's self-evident.
Yeah,
thank you for answering.
Well, I just answering universals like what is truth, what is that? There's entire classes you take, answering those questions, and you read people who wrote hundreds of years ago their thoughts, their reasons why. And like I said, you take the information and you weigh it against your world experience, and you make a choice. Just because I chose something doesn't make it right. Just because I chose something doesn't make it true. But I must be comfortable with the consequences of that choice as well.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I would agree with that if I was in your position. I guess you're agnostic right now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I would say that would be the best term to use. I don't have the arrogance to speak to what God is. So I would say that would be a term that could be used.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess the atheist position would have to have some sort of knowledge that, or maybe review all knowledge to make the claim that there is no God, right?
I don't really like the atheist position a bit, because it makes a claim of knowledge that you can't make even in an honest scientific debate. And that's why it's an absolute. There is not this. I don't see. You don't get absolutes in reality. So I take that phrase from them a bit as, so a lot of people love God. They love God. They find a lot of understanding in God, and I truly believe the way that it's revealed to them that this book is not inerrant. This book has other things in it that you may not agree on, all those aspects. And the solution that's given to you by your family, the church, and everything else is, just have faith in God. And it's just like, to me, that's a bit of a cop-out, trying to answer these questions that these people have. And I think that causes a bit of callousness on their side. And there's also a bunch of pride to say, I know God doesn't exist. I think there's the same level of callousness to say, I do know God exists. Because we just had a conversation about knowledge. How do I know? How do I this? How do I that? But you'll make the exact same caveated claimed statement about God. You claim absolute knowledge. It's interesting when I speak and we're talking, you have someone who takes a position of absolute knowledge trying to have you define absolute knowledge. And the only way to define it to them would be God, because that would be their understanding of absolute knowledge.
Do you believe you would have to have 100%? Or would you have
I'm sorry,
doesn't exist?
you're roboting a bit. I heard you believe you can have 100%, and then you like cut in and out.
Okay, sorry. Do you believe you have to have 100% of knowledge to know God exists? Or do you need 100%? Or do you need 100% of knowledge to know He doesn't exist?
I would need a lot of knowledge that God exists to prescribe the actions that are literally dictated in the words of the Bible, and that knowledge and information, I guess, I have not been able to see. And even if God existed, there are things that I would challenge Him on. If God told me to kill my son, I'd tell him to go fuck himself. If God killed my family, I would tell him to go fuck himself. There's just so many different things in it that, in my opinion, has kept us back more than moved us forward. But it has united. It's a unification tool. But like I said, there's a lot of prescriptions in that book. That's why I say, like, most people who are Christians, they haven't read the Bible. And if they have, it wasn't cover to cover. They cherry pick phrases and clauses. They use things to make others sound wicked. In their actions of doing so, they are the ones being wicked. But it's at the same time, it's like, if you are a Christian, read the Bible. Judge not, yet let you were judged first. You know, like take those actual prescriptions that you want to have a literal, moral understanding, underlying universal truth that you can go from, and actually practice them.
Yeah. Why do you think Christians today don't know the Bible or the teachings of Jesus, in your opinion?
I would say I don't. So I would have, if you want to, like this is the thing. I think a lot of things are misinterpreted. To me, and like this is my opinion, and this is from life experience. To me, the message of Jesus is peace unto the detriment of yourself, which is a very hard thing to do as a man, especially as a man, because you have agency to change. But if you acting on that agency causes bad things to happen to other people, even though you have every right to do that, not doing it is better for the collective whole. And I say that, and this is where I do see God because of time and stuff like that. You know, Jesus came around, let's say 2,000 years. If he didn't exist, doesn't matter. The message was there. If he died and he didn't rise, it doesn't matter. The message is there. So it's just like at the end of the day, I take what I can. Thomas Jefferson did this with the Bible. He literally said, "I'm taking all the mumbo jumbo out of the Bible," and I take that and I take the message and I see who Jesus was. He was the King of the Jews. That's what they put on his cross. King, I-N-R-I. What Jesus could have done is commanded every one of his people to rise up with a sword and protect him. And you saw what happened when one of his people tried to do it. He didn't.
He even called Peter Satan. Do you remember that? He even called Peter Satan.
Well, yeah. So he chose peace to the detriment of himself. And then when you look at history, you look at what happened to that region multiple times when they revolted against the Romans. There were people who were crucified from the gates of Jerusalem to Damascus. So in Jesus' revolt that ended up freeing them, one person was crucified because he chose peace to the detriment of himself. That's a message, like I said, in our common world with nuclear weapons. So back in the day, you could be a manglonific, psychopathic man, take whatever you want, do whatever you want, and the world wouldn't end. You would die and things would change. In the modern world, if one of these psycho-fucking-path leaders pushes a fucking button, we do not exist on this planet anymore. So like I said, I see. Someone said the other day the Bible is living. I completely agree. It's a living story. It's truly something written from the ethos of humanity. But in that statement, I'm not saying it's the immutable word of God.
Okay, thank you. I would offer, or I would suggest that from a Christian worldview, the reason why a majority of Christians don't know the Bible or the teachings of Jesus is probably because of Satan himself. Right? He undermines creation. I believe there's 4 pillars or axioms or legs to the Bible. Mm-hmm. First one is creation, and that's the first book of the Bible. Whenever you create something, you have rules. So that's the second creation axiom. Whenever you have rules, there's judgment. That's the third leg to the throne or to the table or the chair. And the fourth, because he's a merciful creator, it's mercy, and that is through Jesus. So I believe Satan literally attacks all these pillars, and that's why we have Christians today who reject creation, who reject God's rules, who don't even know about judgment or how to teach non-believers about judgment or the grace. That's just my opinion.
I would say this directly to that statement. I reject the creation that was presented in the Bible. I reject the majority of the rules that God allow that say it's a just society. That is not Satan. I still believe in the top of the table. I still believe that there is a God. I can see naturalistic processes, and I don't need to invoke a God to get the end result. I can like that. That's the thing. Like, in my opinion, the Abrahamic God that we worship came from a God of the gaps. It was a God of the lack of scientific understanding, explaining those things that you were speaking about. And now that we can explain them, in my opinion, it's not that God is dead. It's that we need to look at the words in this book, especially if you're going to take them literally, because that is the true only danger of this book, is if you take it literally.
Okay, so when people take it literally to repent, that's dangerous? Or I mean, there's just some other things that are literal that's dangerous?
There are other things that are I haven't. Have I said that the Bible's only bad? Have I said that?
No. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So at the same time, there are good things, and that's why I think I said it the other night. In my opinion, the Bible is like a ethereal dragnet that literally catches lost souls. It truly does, and you can use the tools that you can find in that, and you can find your way back to humanity, find your way back to reality. I think you can. But like let's just use the fishing line. Back in the day, they had these long fishing lines. They dragged it all the way across the bottom, and it took a lot of shit that they didn't need. And then there was technology that came that allowed them to add a little something, and now it is better for everything else. And the process is still the same. And that's the thing. We have the technology aspect of my analogy that is added. That's where you have heretics and all this other stuff. It's the same thing about, like, we were talking about, like, the missing links, and they were poisoning the well about Piltdown Man and all that other stuff. If you are able to be critiqued, doesn't that give you a better, I guess, justification for that end truth of knowledge through others' journeys? And you're seeing someone else there, like, hey, we're all going to this must be North Carolina, because I said we're going to all meet here, and we're all here, like that. Those simple base assertions, but yeah, taking the Bible literally is it's the same danger of the Quran. It's the same danger of any of these dogma. It's the same danger of any dogma.
What if it's true, though? Before I go, what if it's true, the Bible?
Wait, what?
What if the Bible is true?
Yeah, and also, let's say 99% true. I don't want to. Let's just say a high percentage. What if it's true?
Yeah, more probable than not. Is that what you're saying? I'm not going to go down Pascal's wager, but you're saying basically more probable than not. What if that's the case?
Yeah. So what if it's true? Would it be more than just? Wouldn't it be good to take it literal because it's true?
And therein earlier when I said that I'd have words to God, and that's the thing. If people I heard someone say that they're Israel, and it's like the word Israel means wrestle with God. Honestly, I thought the Bible was a book that should have been commented and revisioned on, and someone should have noted saying Abraham needs to take fucking Zoloft. I've always thought that like literally the story of Job, there should be an asterisk at the end saying he did not get his original family back. Like things like that are it disturbs me, because those are the moral justifications that people use to apply actions to others.
I was going to say, Eden is not necessarily taking it literally. He's got his own interpretations of each bit.
And therein lies it all there too. It's cherry picking. This is a metaphor. This isn't. This is literal.
That's the only way to read it.
And therein lies where you get into debates about it being the arbiter, the unwielding aspect of morality.